Welcome back. Arlen Suderman, Joe Vaclavic rejoining us. Arlen, we talked a lot about supply in that first roundtable. A couple of surprises, really, when we look at this August USDA report. What about WASDE? Were there any adjustments made that also produced some surprises this week?
Yeah, Joe mentioned earlier the big cut in Russian wheat production. The Canada was also cut down to around 24 million metric tons, which was more significant than what I think the trade was anticipating out of Canada, but not much cut for hard red spring. And we still need to have the biggest question answered there. What is abandonment going to be in the Northern Plains? And USDA really won't answer that until their small grain summer report on September 30th. So we're going to have to wait a while for that. But then when you look at corn and soybean global numbers, USDA cut feed usage for both corn and wheat, significant cuts in feed usage. So I guess our animals are going to say, hey, prices are going to be higher, so let's kind of cut back and diet here over the coming year, not eat so much. And so USDA really hasn't accounted for the lost export supply from Brazil since they've cut their crop from roughly 110 million metric tons now down to 87 million metric tons, which is where our team in Brazil has been for quite a while.
Yeah, Joe, is that what you were alluding to? Is that what really raised some eyebrows when we looked at the feed side of that equation globally?
Consider the U.S. export projection for the new crop marketing year at 2.4 billion bushels. They reduced that number because they typically reduce demand when they reduce supply. So they're estimating here that export demand is going to be below last year by a good 350 to 400 million bushels, despite the fact that we have the largest book of new crop corn exports on record, thanks to early and very aggressive Chinese purchases of new crop corn out of the U.S. So there are some things here that that you could argue on the demand side, certainly. Like we haven't really hurt demand that much, especially in the case of corn exports, despite the high prices.
Yeah, and China's been on kind of a buying spree this week after a hiatus from any buying. We did see China come in and have some daily buys of soybeans. Do we need more of those in order to keep pace with what USDA has penciled in right now?
Yeah, we really do.
Oh, go ahead, Arlen.
Yeah, we really do. And Chinese buyers have been waiting for ocean freight rates to come down. That's been their big complaint, is they don't like paying $3 over the board in order to get soybeans or corn delivered. And that's been a big problem. But they're not going to get very many soybeans out of the Pacific Northwest this year, especially not very early. And so they're going to have to get more from the Gulf. And they were running out of time in order to get those soybeans out of the Gulf booked in order to get them shipped. So that's going to help the demand for soybeans, those early harvested beans out of the Gulf, out of the Mid-South region, get on their way to China so they can have them by October, because that's really where their slot is that they need to fill. There's still a lot of question about how soft that demand will be in the October-November time frame, but we do believe that they still need to make some significant purchases yet and anticipate that stepping up even more, especially if they could get a bigger break in freight.
Switching gears a little bit, Joe, right in your neck of the woods in Nashville this week, National Cattlemen's Beef Association had their annual convention. Economists really painting a bullish picture. When you look at the strong demand, they're saying despite the increase in meat prices that we see, we're still seeing record demand. Is that baked into what actually producers are seeing right now?
There's some better looking things on the horizon in terms of cattle prices. There's very, very wide spreads between nearby prices and deferred prices. I'm sure that most of the people at the cattle show this week are not necessarily thrilled with this USDA report today, which resulted in a big rally in the corn market. But in any case, yeah, the future does look quite a bit better, and this rally in the box beef has been extremely impressive.
Yeah, as cattle producers do look at these higher feed costs setting on the board right now, Arlen, do you think that these price levels here are here to stay, or do you think cattle producers may get a break in feed costs as we head into harvest?
Well, a lot of that, of course, is going to be on how we finish out, and will we see the typical harvest pressure on the price or not? I think one of the concerns going forward in cattle markets is we still got to look at that packer capacity. And when we look at the hog market, we've got to look at the COVID in China, where they're starting to have more restrictions, more lockdowns, trying to eradicate the Delta variant ahead of hosting the Winter Olympics in February. So China's numbers aren't that high for COVID, but they're taking very extreme measures that have a big impact, a negative impact on energy consumption and meat consumption.
Yeah, and this week we even heard about a big port having some COVID cases and some issues there. Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Arlen, so much for breaking down these reports this week. Please stay with us. We have a lot more to cover on U.S. Farm Report this weekend.